Hello and welcome, I'm Ken Gowdy from Sax Comprehensive, and this is the first in a two-part series looking at chords. By the end of this video, you'll learn quite a lot about triads, slash chords and suspended chords, so stay tuned. Starting with the triad chords, there is a major triad, a minor triad, an augmented triad and a diminished triad. In order to create these, let's write out the 12 major scales. Now let's label the degrees of the scale, starting with 1, which is the root, then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. The 8th note is the octave, which brings us back to the start. But let's continue counting up to the 13th note, which we will need when looking at extended chords. Now for each of these scales, let's choose the root, the 3rd and the 5th note. You have now created all the major triads. So a triad is the root, the 3rd and the 5th of any scale and is named according to the root note. For example, these are the notes of the F major triad. These triads are in root position. Now if you take the lowest note and move it up an octave, it is still the same triad, but it is in what we would call the first inversion. If you do the same and take the lowest note and move that up an octave, then the chord is in the second inversion. The third inversion brings us back to the start an octave higher. You can also repeat notes of the triad. This happens a lot in piano playing, where the notes are spread out and repeated in the left or right hand to give a fuller sounding chord. If the notes of the triad are close together, then they are referred to as being in closed position, whereas if the notes of the triad are spread out among the octaves of the piano, then a chord is referred to as being in open position. Now let's see what happens if you build up a triad in the same way, but starting on the 2nd degree of the scale. So we use the 2nd, the 4th and the 6th note of the scale. Well, this is also a triad, but in this case it is a minor triad. So you have created all of the minor triads. The reason why a triad built on the root of the major scale is a major triad and a triad built on the 2nd degree of the scale is a minor triad has to do with the intervals between each note. Let's compare the C major triad, which is C, E, G, with the C minor triad, which is C, E flat, G. Immediately you can see that the difference is that the middle note in the root position is flattened. So the easiest way to create a minor triad is to create a major triad, then flatten the 3rd scale note or the middle note of the triad in root position. To turn a minor triad into a major triad, simply raise the middle note. You can also work out the major and minor triads by counting how many halftones or semitones are in their intervals, but this seems like a lot more work to do. A major triad has an interval pattern of 4 semitones or halftones, which is a major third, and 3 halftones or semitones, which is a minor third. Whereas a minor triad has this pattern the other way round, 3 halftones or semitones and 4 halftones or semitones. So to create a triad by counting the halftones in the intervals, you simply start with the note of the chord and count the required halftones. But since all musicians should know their scales, it is easier just to take the root, the 3rd and the 5th note of the major scale for the major triad, or the root, the flattened 3rd and the 5th of the major scale for the minor triad. So let's see what happens when you build up a triad on the 3rd degree of the scale. In this case, it is also a minor triad. You can count the intervals to prove this. A triad built on the 4th degree of the major scale is a major triad. On the 5th degree of the major scale is a major triad. On the 6th degree of the major scale is a minor triad. And on the 7th degree, we have a new type of triad known as the diminished triad. So let's compare this with the C major and C minor triad. Immediately you will notice that compared to the major triad, it has a flattened 3rd and a flattened 5th. So to create a diminished triad, simply change the major or minor triad into a diminished triad by flattening the appropriate notes. The interval pattern is a minor third and a minor third. So here are all the triads you can create by building them using the notes of the major scale. I have used the C major scale here as an example. The major triads are on the root, the 4th and the 5th degree of the scale. The minor triads are on the 2nd, 3rd and 6th degree of the scale, and a diminished triad is on the 7th degree. We also refer to these triads by Roman numerals. All these triads can be converted into other triads by altering one or more notes. The last triad to cover is the augmented triad. This is created by simply raising the fifth note of a major triad. So the major triad is C, E, G, whereas the C augmented triad is C, E, G sharp. The interval pattern is a major third and a major third. So to recap, the major triad consists of the root, the third, and the fifth note of the scale. The minor triad has the root, the flattened third, and the fifth note of the scale. The diminished triad has the root, the flattened third, and flattened fifth of the scale. And the augmented triad has the root, the third, and the raised fifth of the scale. So again, once you know your major triads, you can convert them into other triads by either raising or lowering the appropriate notes. Also, if you create a triad and you raise all of the notes by the same amount of halftones, then you still have the same type of triad. So if you have a C diminished chord and you raise all of the notes by a halftone, then you create a C sharp diminished chord. This is because the relationship of the intervals remain the same. Since I've not included the C sharp major scale in this video, you may see some triads labeled differently which are based on this scale. However, this should not be a problem as you should be able to work them out using the examples in this video. For example, the E flat minor triad has the same sound as the D sharp minor triad. The only difference is that the triad is labeled differently. Now let's look at some other chords consisting of three notes. First, there is the sus chord, short for suspended chord. There is the sus2 and sus4. Here you simply take the major triad, which consists of the root, the third, and the fifth note, and you remove the third note and replace it with the second or the fourth. So C sus2 is C, D, G, and C sus4 is C, F, G. These chords are used to add tension or suspension, which are later resolved. Added chords such as C add 2, C add 4, C add 9, C add 11 are 4-note chords, but they are added here because they are simply major triads with the added note. So C add 9 would be the C major triad with the added ninth note. Lastly, we have the slash chords which look like C/D. In this case, it means that the C major triad is played over a lower D bass note. However, it does not have to be a major triad. It could be any type of triad. So for example, you could have C minor triad/D. So I hope you've understood everything that I had to say in this video about chords and that you've learned quite a lot about triads, sus chords and slash chords. In the next video we will explore more deeply some more complex chords such as extended seventh chords used a lot in jazz. Hopefully you found this video helpful and informative. If you did, as usual, give it a like, share it with your friends. If you're not yet a subscriber, then consider subscribing to this channel, and I shall see you soon in the next video. Bye bye.